The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third Thursday webinar with the topic of the new normal will require rest. And we have Dr. Harry Hertz with us today. Before we get started, I want to go through some of the logistics. First of all, I'm Margot Hoffman from the Partnership for Excellence. And on behalf of MAPE, Penn West, Oklahoma Quality, Quality New Mexico, SWAY, and the Partnership for Excellence, we welcome you to our webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar or when Harry concludes his presentation, there's two options for you. We are keeping the microphones muted, so you can either type a question into the question box in your control panel, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute your microphone. So there's two options for you when asking questions. Today's session will last no longer than an hour, and we'll have time at the end, as I said, for you to ask questions and to introduce our next webinar. We have a couple upcoming events that I want to share with you. The MAPE program has their annual awards ceremony and conference on November 12th, and you can visit their website for more information and to register. And Performance Excellence Northwest, they are actually in the middle of their learning symposium this week. There's one more day left, and that can be information on that can be found on their website as well. The Partnership for Excellence is in the process of recruiting examiners for our upcoming cycle. So if you're interested in being an examiner, you can apply on our website. And then I want to remind everyone that the Baldrige Fall Conference, which will be a virtual conference this year, is October 21st through the 22nd. It's titled Excellence on Tap. It was originally supposed to be in Milwaukee, hence the title. But if you go to baldrigeconference.org, you can find information on the schedule, speakers, and registration. I'd like to thank our organizational members for their support. All of the organizations that are bringing you this webinar are 5013Cs, so we greatly benefit from the support of our organizational members. I would now like to introduce our presenter. Dr. Harry Hertz has been with the National Institute of Standards and Technology since 1973 and was originally a research chemist and then had a series of management positions, including director of the Chemical Science and Technology Lab. He served as the director of the Baldrige Performance Excellence from 1995 till mid-2013, and he's now the program director emeritus in a consulting capacity. Dr. Hertz has made presentations to a wide variety of audiences on organizational excellence, change management, and the Baldrige criteria for measuring performance excellence. He's been the intellectual driver behind the Baldrige criteria and their evolving definition of performance excellence for almost 20 years. Dr. Hertz has a BS degree in chemistry from the Polytechnic Institute of Brooklyn and a PhD from MIT. Following graduate school, he spent 2 years as an Alexander von Humboldt Fellow at the University of Munich and is a Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and an Honorary Fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Dr. Hertz is an adjunct associate professor at the American University and serves on several advisory boards. He serves on the board of trustees for Sibley Memorial Hospital, on the board of the Armstrong Institute for Patient Safety and Quality with Johns Hopkins Medicine, and as an advisor to the Israeli American Bird Foundation. I now would like to introduce you to Harry, who will share the new normal with us, and we're going to do a quick change here of presenters, and we'll get started then.
Okay, whoops. Was there a minute ago? And there we go.
We're not yet seeing it, Harry.
You're not? Okay, because I'm
No.
seeing it on my. Are you still not seeing it?
I'm not seeing it yet, no. Oh, wait, just a second. It almost came. There we go.
Okay, great. Let me just go to full screen mode here. Which it, okay, so hopefully it's all there now.
We're all set.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to join you today. And it's a pleasure to share with you some of my thoughts on what the new normal will require as we hopefully move forward from our period of extreme isolation and quarantine. I've entitled the talk, New Normal Will Require Rest. You'll see there are some exponents there, and I'll give you the full meaning of that rest in a minute. I've said the new normal will require these various components, although I should say from the start, as you'll probably see in a few minutes, that there's a lot of overlap among these components that I've designated as the key components to consider as we go to the new normal. And obviously with all this overlap and with the challenges organizations are facing and will face, I think a systems perspective, and you wouldn't expect anything else from me, I guess, such as Baldrige offers, is an appropriate way to make sure we're considering everything that's important. So a little background. Obviously, we all know the disruptions that have been triggered by COVID-19, and it's really disrupted everything, including, and maybe most importantly, for where I'm going to start, our life patterns. There's been a frenzy of activity for those of us with, for those of you, I'm not one of you anymore, with school-age children. That frenzy has started all over again in the last few weeks. And we've found a real challenge in balancing space, really, and time in one location, where that one location is suddenly now where we work, where we live with our family, where our kids go to school in many cases, and that has put stress clearly on the system, not only on work systems, but on home systems as well. So I'll say that the first comment about rest is about the true word rest, and I think, and we're learning that after all this frenzy of activity and stress, some true rest is necessary. And organizations that are faring the best are those that are acknowledging the stress and acknowledging the contributions of employees and the changed meaning of engagement for these employees. And leaders need to show understanding and compassion. And those that are getting the greatest engagement from their employees are those that are understanding and showing compassion toward those employees. And as a matter of fact, some organizations, and I just wrote a blog on it for anybody who's interested, are looking at actually setting up a pledge to employees relative to the respect they have for those employees and the need that the organization has to show appreciation and boundaries, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in this new work from home environment. But now let's turn to the rest that I really want to talk about today. And you can see on this slide the acronym RE squared ST cubed, and below it what those R's and E's and S's and T's stand for. But basically, I think the new normal will require a focus in 7 areas. And what I plan on doing is briefly covering with you each of those 7 areas. Those areas being resilience, and I'll define that for you. Ecosystems, I'll define that for you. E-wisdom, I'll define that for you. And then societal responsibility, telework, transition, and in the end, organizational transformation. And we'll chat a little bit about each of those. So let's dive right in to resilience. And I am actually going to try to get rid of this little dialog box, see if that works. No, that didn't work. All right, I will live with the dialog box on my screen. So definition of resilience is really acting on multiple fronts to achieve 2 things. To prepare for anticipated hazards, but obviously with COVID-19 and with some of the movement toward greater social equity and justice in the U.S., those were not anticipated events in the U.S. So the other part of resilience is protecting, anticipating, and enhancing employee and customer engagement in a time of change, at the same time looking at performance of the organization, which involves supply chain, finances, productivity, and more, as we're learning, resilience also involves a significant contribution to community well-being, and organizations that have seen to that are those that are being appreciated most and probably likely to see benefit from it. So in the end, organizational resilience is a way of building that builds agility into an organization's DNA and sees that as a way of life going forward. And for some reason, I can't advance my screen. My screen has frozen. I'm not sure why.
Would you like me to pull it up, Harry, or do you think you'll get it? Okay, so we've lost Harry. Hopefully he will be logging back in. And I'm going to pull up his screen where he was. He must have had a glitch with his Wi-Fi. And while we're waiting, if anyone wants to share how they have been, since we are at the point of talking about resilience. Oh, I think we have Harry back.
I think I'm back.
Okay, great.
All of a sudden, you were gone.
Okay, so would you like to share your screen again, Harry?
That's what I'm working on. Okay. And let me see. Last time when it, okay. I think we're okay. Whoops. Okay, so sorry for that.
Harry,
so when we talk about resilience.
Harry, we don't see your screen yet.
Oh, okay. I'll talk and hopefully you'll see the screen
Yes, we see
Okay.
it now.
Great. Sorry about that glitch. So when we talk about resilient organizations, we're talking about organizations that really possess agility and resilience in multiple dimensions. And I've indicated those here in the first bullet. And in terms of the remainder of the REST principles, and again, to show the interconnectedness of these principles, organizations that are already adopting these principles that are the most effective in being resilient as in the first few months of this pandemic have already developed some of the other characteristics, such as an ecosystem mindset, data-rich thought processes. You can read them. I'm not going to go through them individually at this point. And my screen has frozen up again.
Harry, I'm going to pull up the
Margot, I don't know.
Okay, I'll pull up the presentation on my end, and you just tell me when to advance it. So.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why my screen's freezing up.
That's why we have a backup plan in place. So, is this where you were?
So that's where I was, and let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay. So there we are, practicing resilience and agility. Very good. So moving from resilience to ecosystems, this is my definition of ecosystems, but it's basically your organization operating as part of a larger whole that works together with and blends the key attributes and strengths of your organization with those of your partners, collaborators, customers, communities, and even sometimes competitors, depending on the situation. So moving to the next slide, what are the benefits of being part of an ecosystem, being part of that larger whole? You can move and pivot quickly, and particularly as some organizations have already learned, if you share digital platforms, it provides a real advantage. It allows organizations to diversify revenue and business models if, as part of their ecosystem, they have interdependent businesses with autonomy among them or semi-autonomy among them, so that they can also operate independently as needed, and basically, if you will, cover for each other when one of the partners in the ecosystem has a problem. They share information and learning so that each organization can benefit from the learning and information collected by the other organizations, and thereby they distribute risk and distribute the management of risk. So moving on to the next slide, ecosystems really are one way of redefining supply and partnership networks. And as we've learned over the last few months, they need to be rethought because transfers need to be shorter in distance and time. Supply networks need to be more efficient, more flexible, and indeed more local very often because of disruptions in those networks. And by partnering with that network and developing an actual ecosystem where you share not only responsibilities, but also benefits, you all can become greater than the sum of the parts. So moving on to the next slide, in the end, ecosystems are really trust systems. And they're systems that replace transactional relationships with mutual and shared value creation. So they go from a strictly business relationship to a relationship of trust and mutual benefit. And we were seeing the start of ecosystems, and actually, if you look at the last or the current set of Baldrige criteria, you see the word ecosystem sprinkled in there every once in a while. I assume you'll see some more of it in the 2021-2022 criteria, and actually I know for a fact that you will see resilience playing a significant role in the revised criteria that will be released in the next few months. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the next component of REST, which is e-wisdom, and I've coined that term e-wisdom to embody all aspects of a digitally and data enhanced economy. And you can see the various components there, but it's everything from the analytics that are not only hard data analytics, but analytics of verbal and social network information and data that are present in words, to business and process modeling, use of the cloud, and in the case of organizations where it's appropriate, enhanced automation. On the next slide, some examples of e-wisdom that should be well known to all of us already. First is use of smart technology in manufacturing environments. So the enhanced use of automation, machine-to-machine communication, use of the Internet of Things, the things that are embodied in what has come to be called Industry 4.0 as one example of e-wisdom. Sort of on the other end of the spectrum is the use of everything internet and data and knowledge based in the new consumer environment. And just some data to give you a sense of what's been going on in hard numbers. In March 2020 alone, according to Nielsen, there was a 60% rise in consumer online purchases. Obviously, no surprise to anybody as a result of the pandemic. But 37% of that rise came from totally new or significantly increased household use. And maybe the most important piece of that new consumer environment is that 40% of new shoppers, new online shoppers, were over the age of 55. So the pandemic has really changed the buying habits of all of us and brought into this new online consumer environment a segment of the population that was not heavily or at all involved before the start of the pandemic. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Let's talk a little bit about societal responsibility. And obviously, we saw over the last months two very significant impacts on our environment in the US. The first, obviously, was COVID-19. The second was the country coming to terms with social inequities that have existed for a long time and the need for social justice in the US. And part of that maybe was also triggered by the pandemic because one of the greatest areas of a social divide in the US, we came to learn very quickly in the pandemic, was the digital divide among rural and urban, among socioeconomic communities. who had access or didn't have access to the internet and to online opportunities. And as a result of that, I think we've already learned that the new normal has an expectation that societal issues will be addressed. And some of those issues are shown here, but I mean, certainly the issue of social injustice, population-based discrimination, income and quality of life disparities, and, you know, sort of on the other end of it, the need to reestablish and build trust in businesses and the public sector, and among certainly a significant part of our population, and certainly the younger members of our U.S. population, a great focus on decreasing our environmental impact. So next slide. In the end, I think there's a need for new trust among citizens, among communities and institutions, and people are demanding equity. They expect and want physical and economic security. They are demanding and deserve PII protection. And in the end, I think we have a society that is now looking for more transparency in the way our businesses operate, in the way our public institutions operate, in the way our charitable organizations operate, and also looking for metrics that will demonstrate that transparency, so that we all can see how transparent we're operating as a country. Next slide, please. So I always like to tell stories. People who know me know I like to tell stories about my own experience. So speaking of being socially responsible, both my wife and I apparently had very, very, very mild cases of coronavirus back in the February, early March timeframe, when we didn't even know what it was. And as a result, we have both been capable of donating convalescent plasma to help people who have much more serious cases of COVID. So we recently donated. We've done it several times now. And I don't know how well you can see it here, but you see here my two arms several days after donation. My left arm looks fine. My right arm, the color isn't quite as vivid as it really was, where the whole lower arm was very colorful. And it came from a phlebotomist who I probably inappropriately nicknamed Attila the Incompetent, who stabbed me several times, didn't use an obvious vein that a colleague pointed out to her and that I could even see, and then insisted on twisting the needle around in my arm when she wasn't initially getting enough blood. So I show this just as an example of being socially responsible. Also means that you have to keep in mind who your customers are. And your customers aren't always only your end customer, but certainly a very important customer. And being socially responsible is also respecting your employees, or in this case, your volunteers, who are key to delivering your product, your service, whatever you're doing for those you serve. So moving with that in mind to the next slide. Oops, there should have been one. Can you go back one?
I sure can.
Did we miss one somehow?
That one goes to telework.
Okay. All right. No problem. We'll catch it. But maybe I'll take a break for just a minute there. And before I go to the 3 T's, see if anybody has any questions on what I've covered so far.
Okay, so if you have a question, as a reminder, you can type it in the question box, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute your microphone. So please take either of those options to submit your questions. I'm just going to pause for a second because sometimes it takes a few seconds for people to type their questions in. Well, Harry, I think you're doing such a great job. There's no questions yet, so you can proceed.
Either that or I've confused everybody. Okay, let's move on then. So the next component of REST is the first T, and that's telework. And there have been now a number of studies by different organizations, and they have shown that despite all the fears, which maybe leaders and managers in organizations had about telework prior to the pandemic, the telework during the pandemic has shown that actually there is increased employee productivity. Employees tend to put in, I think it's an additional 15 minutes per day on average, according to data that were gathered by a service that monitors online activity in business environments. Obviously, the telework has reduced pollution since there is less commuting, and because of the sort of sudden nature of the way all this enhanced telework came about, there's been a result of greater employee empowerment, which already is being demonstrated in early studies, has increased employee engagement, and sort of a cycle then leads to increased employee productivity, and the whole thing cycles in a very positive way. So what can one expect long term? First of all, one has to expect that long term there will be a demand on the part of the workforce for increased telework, because it's nice not to have to commute some distance every day. Furthermore, as we're learning, there's now an interest in increased telework on the part of organizations who realize that they might be able to reduce their geographic footprint, their real estate, the amount of space they need, by having a significant portion of the work in the organization done through telework. As a matter of fact, I just read recently that the big outdoor organization, REI, has just built a brand new headquarters in Washington State, had not yet occupied it, was about to occupy it when the pandemic hit. It's apparently an ideal environment for outdoor-minded people with all sorts of greenery. I believe a blueberry hill, or whatever the right term is, fire pits outside. So an ideal corporate environment. And they've decided now to put that whole complex unoccupied up for sale, because they've realized several things. One, the growing interest in telework, their commitment as an organization to reducing pollution, and also that looking now toward the long-term benefits of telework, they can increase their knowledge of local markets, because obviously the outdoors environment in Washington State is very different from the outdoors environment in Florida or the Midwest, that they can actually improve their knowledge of local markets by distributing their headquarters staff and actually having a distributed environment, no longer reliant on that big corporate headquarters. They also, as all organizations, through long-term telework, can increase the geographic reach for skills, so they can go beyond their local headquarters or local physical locations to attract the skills they need. And they can also attract and benefit employees with disabilities who would have a difficult time commuting to work. Next slide. Okay, but going along with this, what we've already discovered, if you'll click again, is that there is a big telework challenge, and that's work-life balance. When you live and work in the same location, in your home, there can be an expectation and a temptation on the part of the individual contributor to be available 24/7 and to, in the end, sacrifice home life because you're living at the office, so to speak. And so enlightened organizations are already dealing with this in a very proactive manner. IBM was one of the early ones that developed a work from home pledge that basically said what the expectation is of people who work for the organization and leaders and managers of the organization to respect the home life and the fact that people are working from home, and that their office is their home and their home is their office. I also recently read about a few actually national companies that have declared a Friday off out of the normal holiday schedule for all employees in recognition of their enhanced time at work while at home, and declared that that Friday off would be a disconnect Friday. So not only were you not expected to work, but you were requested to totally disconnect. No emails, no text, and enjoy that long weekend. So, telework provides lots of benefits. It also provides some challenges that workers and employers will have to come to grips with, many of them that in the end present themselves in how do you preserve brand and culture, how do you adapt culture to respect the home life of employees. Okay, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about transition. And the new normal, I believe at least, will be accomplished through transition and then significant transformation in how we work and think. And some of those clear components of the transformation transformation I've already touched upon. I don't see transition and transformation as two totally distinct phases with a break between them. I think it will be a logical progression, starting with some of the transitions we're going through now, to transformed organizations in the long term. And really what we're talking about is moving from crisis, which is where this all started, to crisis of opportunity. So to looking for opportunities going forward. And two of the key questions that organizations, I think, are starting to ask themselves and need to ask themselves is what needs to be preserved from the old normal, if you will, and what should be changed in the new normal. And the process of transition to transformation really needs to be one from going to reacting, which is what we did in March and April, and the most successful reacted quickly and had the culture and the wherewithal to react quickly, to reinventing, to going from being reactive to being proactive about what we would like to see as both organizations and people in those organizations, as well as those stakeholders of the organizations going forward. And in the end, I think this provides an opportunity, and what we will see are new operating models for many organizations throughout the U.S. Moving to the next slide. So what is transformation? My definition of transformation is building an agile organization capable of resilience in every sense of the definition. So, if I had to say there were two key themes to where U.S. organizations, successful U.S. organizations will go, those two key words would be agility and resilience. And actually, no surprise, as best I can tell from my contributions, as well as seeing an early draft of the revised Baldrige Excellence Framework, those two terms, agility and resilience, will be playing a larger role in the 2021-2022 Framework for Excellence. Okay, next slide. So, what are some of the imperatives, in my opinion, for that transformation to be successful? First of all, organizations need to overcome inertia. And indeed, just thinking of telework, it's been around for a long time, but it took the pandemic to overcome the inertia for many organizations to really wholeheartedly adopt it, or to adopt telework who had never allowed it in the past. Part of the transformation is that we can't lose sight of retaining and building a loyal customer and employee base. We can't serve our customers at the expense of our employees, and indeed, if we try to do that, we will probably lose both. Transformation has already taught us our ability in successful organizations to make more rapid decisions and to communicate more efficiently. One of the things that is an outcome from data already mined from the increased telework during the pandemic is that there tend to be more meetings, but much briefer meetings. And in the end, people spend less time communicating and more time doing than they did in the past. Enhanced employee empowerment, that's already been an outcome of what we were forced to, basically, over the last few months. And it's resulted in increased engagement, increased productivity, and that's not something that employees are going to be eager to give up. And I think what we will also want as part of that transformation is the opportunity for employees and organizations to continue to learn. So we've really become rapid learning organizations over the last few months. The question is, how do we turn that into a long-term learning community within our organizations? Obviously, speed, flexibility, high productivity are always in demand. I think those are imperatives of any transformation. And we have to keep asking ourselves going forward, what else can we reimagine? But I think if there's one word that sort of defines everything that we've talked about in terms of resilience, ecosystems, telework, social responsibility, it's all a matter of focusing on building and retaining trust. Trust with our employees, trust with our customers, and trust with our communities. And so I think a key component of that transformation is how do we build that trust, and transparency obviously is one way of starting to build that trust. So moving on to the
Harry,
next.
we do have a question.
Okay.
The question is, how would you compare your definition of transformation with Deming's transformation?
I think this definition of transformation, first of all, recognizes a reality that, an external environmental reality that Deming never had to consider. And so I think this one is probably equally focused to Deming's on the operating system, but probably has a larger focus on society and people. Hopefully that answers it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, how do you build trust in a system? How do you accomplish all of this? Obviously, and here's the paid advertisement for all of us. It requires a systems perspective, because it can't be accomplished without leadership, without the workforce, without the focus on customers, without strategy, and certainly in a new normal that is heavily reliant on e-wisdom, can't be accomplished without measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. So I think answering the questions in the criteria, and certainly the questions as they will be somewhat revised, will set organizations up for effectively dealing with the transformation that has already started, and certainly will continue and will be required, I think, for organizations that will be successful and that will thrive going forward. So next slide. One last thought before I open it up to any additional questions. The difference between rest and stress, if you look at all the E's, R's, T's, and S's, is two S's. It's just two S's. And I would suggest that the difference between accomplishing rest and being stressed, that those two S's stand for either a substandard or a secretive system, that organizations will need to be, and successful organizations will be, more transparent, more effective communicators, will be fully empowering their workforce, and will build trust, not only within the organization, but with the community at large and the specific community they serve. So that's sort of my take on the new normal. There's a link there to a blog that has more information on each of those components. And with that, I'll say thank you and be happy to answer any additional questions.
Great, thank you, Harry. We do have a question, and it's a little bit long, so I'll read it to you. The societal responsibility and building trust component is so important, and also highlights the other aspects of the pandemic that includes disparity in the delivery of key systems such as healthcare and education. How are you integrating disparity, i.e. racism, income level, into this framework of transformation?
Okay, well, I mean, I think you saw it there in this societal responsibility being one of the key components of this. It's the S in rest. And I think, as I indicated on the slide, part of that rest, or part of that S, a significant part of it, is dealing with social inequities, with societal concerns, with disparities in healthcare and education. And I think I mentioned already, and we've learned this actually in great clarity through the Communities of Excellence, which is this group of 18 communities that are using the Baldrige framework for operating their communities and improving their communities, that as the pandemic hit, one of their biggest challenges across all 18 communities, which were urban, suburban, rural, was the digital divide and the social inequity of access to the internet and digital access. And so I think that all these issues associated with social inequity are a key, maybe the key component of social responsibility that organizations need to embrace.
Okay, we have a comment, but we don't have many more questions. Oh, wait. The comment was great presentation. Always walk away with a couple of ideas. Thanks. We do have a question from Stanley Johnson. Harry, always great to hear from you. Do you have any suggestions on how to assess the levels of trust, especially with employees within an organization?
Yeah, I actually have, I think, a great way to assess the level of trust of employees within an organization, particularly trust for leadership of the organization. And I've always been in favor of, periodically, maybe annually, just in addition to any employee survey you conduct, a one-question anonymous survey that says the leaders of my organization are ethical. And if people truly believe they can respond to that openly and anonymously, you get a very quick pulse of the level of trust in an organization. And hopefully you have and provide some open-ended opportunity for commenting on that one question. If leaders are then open and share some of those comments and what they might do about them, I think it's a great way to build trust.
Well, thank you, Harry. We could all use a game plan right now with this new normal, and you outlined a really great plan that we can all certainly understand and adapt. So thank you for being with us today and sharing your approach to the new normal with rest. I would now like to introduce our next webinar, which is always the third Thursday of the month. So it will be October 15th at 8 or 11 a.m. Eastern time. And we have two great speakers from past Baldrige recipient Integrated Project Management Company. We'll have Larry Meyer and Dan Stark with us. And the topic is how to write a successful Baldrige application. So they're going to give us some tips and best practices. And with them being a project management organization, I know they use project management to actually write their application. So we hope you can join us. We will be sending out links to register for the upcoming webinar. We will be, as it says here, the third Thursday of October. On behalf of MAPE, Penn West, Oklahoma Quality New Mexico, SWAY, and TPE, I'd like to thank you for joining us. If you are considering getting on the Baldrige journey, here is the contact information for each of our programs, and we would be happy to assist you. I also want to share with you, if you didn't notice, there is a PDF of Harry's presentation in the handout box of your control panel. So if you'd like to download that, you will have a copy of that presentation. So thank you for being here with us today. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks again, Harry, and we will see you next month.
Thank you. Goodbye.